Welcome to Reimagining Movement, Navigating Disability in Dance. As an able-bodied dancer, my dancing practices were amended where I encountered a concussion. This pivotal moment not only reshaped my understanding of movement, but also sparked a profound exploration into the multifaceted layers of disability within the dance community. Through this podcast, I'll aim to foster a deeper connection of the nuances surrounding disability in dance, moving beyond mere physicality to embrace the rich tapestries of identities and narratives within this space. From highlighting the resilience and creativity of disabled dancers to critically examining the systemic barriers they face, we will explore the intersection of disability rights and culture perspectives within the realm of dance. In the realm of disability dance, a name that stands out as a visionary is Alice Sheppard. Through her groundbreaking work, Sheppard challenges not only the physical limitations imposed by disability, but also the very essence of what dance can be. During her apprenticeship, Sheppard embarked on a profound exploration of movement, delving into the intricacies of dancing in a wheelchair and discovering how disability can generate its own unique form of expression. She learned to listen intently to her body, uncovering a wealth of movements that defy conventional norms. What sets Sheppard apart is her unwavering commitment to challenging audience perceptions of live performance. Her choreography transcends the traditional boundaries and invites audiences to rethink their understanding of disabled dancing bodies. Central to her choreographic language is the use of her wheelchair and crutches as an extension of her body, and this seamlessly is integrated into her routines. She reminds us that disability is not simply a diagnosis to overcome, but it can take form as an art and an aesthetic, a cultural tapestry, a source of creative inspiration. As Alice Sheppard said in her New York Times article, sometimes, counter to the artist's actual focus, audiences assume that the artist's work is intended to educate non-disabled people about disabled rights and etiquette, or to nudge people to think differently about disabled and equity in the world. This is limiting. Linking art so directly to social change can detrimentally tie cultural production to broad societal narratives, making it harder for everyone to understand art outside the lines of those stories. Culturally specific works like disability art can have meaning in a number of different realms. End quote. Movements and ability in dance should not be tokenized nor symbolize triumph over disability, but rather embrace the inherent beauty of the human body in all its diverse forms. I found it so profound that Alice Sheppard was able to find dance later in life as a disabled adult, going through a completely different journey at first. It's so gratifying to know that she was able to become a part of the dance community freely and completely as herself. As she says, this potential she found in herself was a product of already building that confidence and finding the beauty in her body. But unfortunately, some younger disabled dancers might not have such a gratifying process of being a dancer, and that's why disabled dance communities are so necessary. This brings me towards the work of Petra Coopers, who is a disabled culture activist and community performance artist that builds disability community dance and fosters a space where the production of disability art and culture is not tied with the burdens and struggles of societal change, but rather it can exist and be appreciated as it is. Petra Coopers creates these performance environments to bring about disability culture adapted social somatics, and she describes disability culture so beautifully as a trajectory, a movement, a path, rather than a destination. Disability culture is the difference between being alone, isolated, and individuated with a physical, cognitive, emotional, or sensory difference that in our society invites discrimination and reinforces that isolation. The difference between all that and being in a community. End quote. Cooper's dance practice reflects the accessibility of disability culture that, as described by Mia Mangus and other justice communities, is a way of creating connection between disabled people, but not a way of bridging the gap between disabled people and non-disabled worlds. Her choreography challenges the notions of what dance is to critique social constraints through meditative movements such as group scores to support disabled bodies through pain and even joy. There is still so much work to be done in fostering inclusive and vibrant disability dance communities. We must now explore how we can cultivate environments that empower and support disabled dancers on a broader scale. I was able to interview my peer, Renata Munoz, who was a dancer since childhood. She can agree that traditional dance spaces are often exclusive and can alienate disabled dancers. This is why it's so crucial to establish meditative, restorative, disabled dance communities and spaces.
Yeah, this is actually like one of the since okay when I stopped dancing or when I stopped doing like intensive classical ballet, um, I actually hadn't been diagnosed with anything. And part of it, the reason why I wanted to stop was like because of how much pressure there was in the environment.
Yeah.
It was giving me a lot of anxiety too. And so that would be like one thing, particularly in ballet space, the classical ballet spaces, they're very, like the pressure there, and it's like, there's a very idealized type of body. Like you have to be the skinny white girl. So it was very demanding in that way that I was like, I'm not
Yeah,
a
you
fan
have to
of
prove
this.
yourself even if you're not the body type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, especially being around that, like, for most of my life,
Yeah.
it was only like once I kind of left that, and even like, because the modern dance I was doing was at the same ballet place, but it was with like a different teacher who I really loved, and she was much more like, not about that
Yeah.
type of pressure.
That's good.
But yeah, I think like one of the things would be cultivating a better like environment where we're supportive of these different like types of bodies. And I think ballet, because it's so strict in terms of the movements, I think some people have some difficulty in like seeing beyond that, like how ballet could look like beyond the like whatever the French decided was good like years ago.
2 centuries ago.
Yeah. But I think there's definitely ways to do that because I mean also one of my doctors who has the same conditions that I do, she also used to be a dancer, and she also used to do some ballet, but can't do it much at all. But I think like I'm always thinking in my head, there are definitely ways that I could adapt some of these movements in a way that's better for my body. Especially since ballet is like a lot of like, extending and like turning out and all of that. Like I can physically do it, but it's not good for me to do it for my body.
Yeah.
But there are definitely ways to adapt. So I think that in some ways is like, sometimes, you can learn a little of that from modern, of like just adapting.
Even in our own community as students at Haverford and Bryn Mawr, we can establish practices to support disabled dancers and create these restorative disabled dance communities. Maya Cohen Shield, who is also a peer of mine, had a positive experience in her Bryn Mawr dance class as a disabled dancer. They were able to sketch their dance phrases and were surprised to find that this practice embodied the meaning behind their study more than their actual movement actually could have. After getting a concussion, I would have loved to have more options in my dance course to engage with the practices through avenues other than movement. I hope these gratifying experiences like Maya's can illuminate the dance department to have some creative opportunities and spaces for rest or non-movement for disabled dancers, because dancing is a subjective art. To wrap up this on a disability arts and culture framework, I want to quote Maya's reflections on Alice Shepard's work. Maya states, "It allows me to recognize that art that incorporates disability isn't about necessarily teaching others, but showing your full authentic self and experience for yourself and other disabled people. It's about embracing yourself and all that comes with you, whether it's in mobility devices, a certain way of walking or talking, or anything else."